The following interview contains medical advice. Please check with your healthcare practitioner before considering treatment. Hello, I'm Mary Ito, and welcome to the CRAM podcast. I was originally going to start my introduction to this topic by saying there's a condition that affects women of a certain age. But then I changed my mind because after learning more, I discovered that this condition can actually affect a broader range of women than I thought, many who might be much younger than I realized. I'm talking about perimenopause. Now, you've probably heard a lot about menopause. A lot of attention has been paid to that. But there seems to be a lack of awareness and even confusion around perimenopause and how it affects women. Jerilynn Prior is an expert on perimenopause, menopause, and the effects of menstrual cycles on women. She's an endocrinologist, a professor emerita in the Department of Medicine at UBC, and she also founded the Center for Menstrual Cycle and Ovulation Research. She's also the author of the award-winning book, Estrogen's Storm Season, Stories of Perimenopause. And she joins us. Hello. Thanks for joining us, Jerilynn.
Hello. Glad to be with you.
So I'm going to tell you personally, I've known a number of women who they said to me, they're experiencing strange symptoms. They didn't know what was going on with them. They thought they were going crazy. How common is that feeling among women experiencing perimenopause?
That's a very common thing to say. And it's because there are so many physiological as well as social cultural changes. And they're sort of all wrapped up in one thing called perimenopause.
So can I ask you, I feel there has been a fair amount of attention on menopause. And before, many years ago, that was even sort of in the shadows, right? We didn't really know about menopause. Women didn't talk about it. But then that came to light. Why is it that perimenopause is still not talked about a lot, that there's still so much lack of awareness?
I think it's partly because the people that are experts in women's health, the gynecologists, would rather just talk about menopause and estrogen deficiency and, make things simple. And it isn't simple. It's complicated and it's also there tends to be, I want a clear, bang on diagnosis, clear boundaries, doctor knows best thing. But in fact, in perimenopause, only the woman herself can describe what's going on and therefore get an understanding of, the process.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell me, what exactly is perimenopause and how would that be different? I know you're like, wait a second. Didn't I just tell you, Mary, it's the woman's experience? Okay. But as best you can.
What exactly?
Yeah. What kind of is perimenopause and how is it different from menopause?
Okay. Excellent question. So the current sort of official definition of perimenopause, it starts when cycles get irregular. However, I went 5 years with remarkable changes that I knew about that were objective, like heavy flow, and yet that didn't fit the diagnosis of perimenopause because my cycles were still regular.
You're talking about your own situation.
I'm talking about myself. In fact, I was perimenopausal late 80s, early 90s. I'm a pre-baby boomer, and there was just nothing about it. But when I started having really sore breasts, and it went on for 10 years, I know that's not low estrogen. It felt more like I felt when I was pregnant. And in fact, that's a common experience of women, is they dream that they're pregnant.
Really?
Mm.
They dream that they're pregnant when they're in perimenopause.
That's right.
So how old were you when this happened, when you went into perimenopause?
I was in my late 40s.
You were in your late 40s.
I didn't become menopausal till I was 57. So I was a bit late.
So, what do we know about the onset of perimenopause? When can that happen?
It can happen normally anytime from the mid 30s, late 30s.
Women can start having those symptoms?
Mm-hmm. And the duration is also extremely variable. So I haven't actually tracked, but it was more than 10 years for me. For some women, it's 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I think women differ quite a lot. One thing that's interesting is those who are East Asian, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, tend to have a shorter and easier perimenopause.
Oh, that's interesting. You don't know why, do you?
I think it's because the genetically, the metabolism of estrogen is quicker. I think personally, my own metabolism of estrogen is slow.
I mean, we could really get into this, and then I can ask you, well, why would that be with East Asians? It's faster, the estrogen.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but it does appear to be a genetic difference.
Okay, and then what about, would there be a hereditary factor? So if my mom had perimenopause early and it was a rough go, is there a higher chance that that's going to happen to me?
Probably.
Oh,
but it's not a recipe for disaster. So I complained actually to my mom's first cousin, who is a mentor for me. I said, "How come I'm having such a tough time? You didn't have any trouble. Mom had no trouble. My younger sister had no trouble. What's going on with me?" And she said, "You were meant to have problems so that you could figure it out and help others." And I said, "Gee, thanks."
Thanks a lot. Yeah, right. So can you talk about what would be, the kinds of symptoms a woman might experience then in perimenopause?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's variable. Variable is the middle name, perimenopause. So just so you know, but tendency to waking up in the middle of the night, a tendency to start night sweats, especially around the period, around flow. Those are early things. And the other one that's early is heavy flow. Flooding. No explanation, going on for days and weeks. So that about a third of women in perimenopause see their doctor because of heavy flow. And this is one of those myths that needs to be debunked. And that is, the message on the street is that heavy flow is because of fibroids. And I agree, fibroids are often present. But fibroids, by definition, grow in the muscle of the uterine wall. Only about 10% or less are next to the lining, which is what's shedding and making heavy flow. So they are not an explanation for heavy flow in perimenopause. And what I think is happening is there's way too much estrogen and not enough progesterone. And those are exactly the hormonal changes that happen in perimenopause.
And that's been proven? Too much estrogen, not enough progesterone. Yeah.
In fact, about the estrogen question, we have higher than premenopausal. I would say to a lay audience, higher than the sexiest 20-year-old in perimenopause. Then, okay.
We do.
Yeah. And that isn't recognized.
No, and why would that be? Is it because our system is not regulated at that point?
Yeah, the feedback loops are broken to allow us to get rid of those extra follicles that make estrogen.
Yeah.
So we don't get a period when we are ancient.
Is there an upside to this? Having all that estrogen, like more than a 20-year-old?
Not really.
No, okay.
The problem is that the estrogen is in huge spurts. So it makes peaks that are very high, but then it comes down. And the dropping estrogen is what causes night sweats.
Oh.
It's also what causes rapid bone loss. And bone loss is more rapid in those last years in perimenopause than it is in the first years in menopause.
Yeah. So I was really interested when I was reading up on you and your research, the fact that you also are researching osteoporosis and the connection, right, with perimenopause and menopause. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So estrogen is absolutely important for bone because the major change in bone is resorption, which is fast. It allows taking away of old bone so that new bone, stronger, can replace it. That's essential. And in certain circumstances, like preparing during pregnancy or preparing for lactation, it's essential to provide calcium. So it's a quick way of getting calcium when it's needed. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So stopping resorption is something estrogen does beautifully. Okay? When estrogen levels are steady, it stops bone loss, which can be a bad thing. Okay? Well, progesterone is the other part of the equation. So it promotes bone formation. And it directly stimulates the osteoblasts, the little tiny cells that make new bone. It directly stimulates them to lay down the protein matrix that gets mineralized into new bone. So when you have dropping estrogen, however, it's exactly the opposite. It stimulates bone resorption, which it does that because down-sloping levels of estrogen are seen by the brain as an emergency.
Oh.
So the brain releases all these stress hormones and neurotransmitters and things. And that's what causes bone loss. A mean average of high estrogen, but the downswings are producing the opposite of the benefit of estrogen for bone, for example.
And so are you just saying then that is what that sort of swing, the high and the low, that's what's happening during perimenopause?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so then you are more likely then to get bone loss because of that.
That's right.
Okay.
So don't despair. The idea is that if you have normally ovulatory cycles before you get perimenopause, in other words, if you're making ovulation each cycle, not just having regular periods, then you've built a high enough bone mass that the losses of perimenopause are not going to put you at risk for osteoporosis. Certainly not until you get it into your 80s, 90s, and are frail.
Mm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's many women who have silently been losing bone during the premenopausal years because they didn't ovulate normally.
And they wouldn't necessarily know that, right?
They wouldn't. No.
Yeah.
We did a meta-analysis, and those who had more ovulatory disturbances, meaning short luteal phases, the time of progesterone being around in the cycle is too short, and also cycles in which they didn't make an egg at all. And those who had more of them were losing almost 1% of their spinal bone each year.
Okay. So let me ask you, is a regular menstrual cycle an indication that you are ovulating regularly?
No.
Oh my goodness. This is so complicated.
It is. And we want to make things simple, but it is simple.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems is we don't have a simple way for women to tell if they're ovulating. And I've been searching for that simple way for 47 years of my academic life because it's so important.
Right. When you say a simple way, yeah, do you mean like some kind of even home test that a woman could do, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. We're not close to that? No?
No.
Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to determine that?
Because first of all, it hasn't been accepted by gynecology in general.
What hasn't been accepted?
That regular cycles don't tell you that you're normally ovulatory.
Has it been proven, though, through studies?
It's been proven through studies, but it is not what, in general, gynecology believes and teaches. So doctors don't know, women don't know. It's a really big problem.
And the evidence is sound on that.
The evidence is sound.
Well, can you explain why the teaching is not evidence-based?
It's about being a woman.
Oh.
It's about basically a men's profession that is not science-based, that is based basically on what your professor taught you. And that just doesn't fly in today's world. At any rate, it needs to change. I think, my recipe for that would be that every medical school's department of OBGYN should have equal representation of endocrinologists, because we're the experts in the hormones that create the cycles and the babies and things that the surgeons, who are necessary and important, need to take care of when there are problems.
I didn't know about this. This is so interesting. Are other endocrinologists on side with you?
Some, and some gynecologists. I have a colleague in Munich, Germany, who's an OBGYN trained physician, and she's done research along with me about women's bone and is totally aware of the importance of ovulation.
Yeah. Let me just step back a minute from the osteoporosis question and just go back to the perimenopause then. Yeah. Because we were talking about symptoms.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there are other symptoms that women suffer from that may not seem it's at all associated with their menstrual cycle or perimenopause. They just think it's something very strange. Like why am I suffering from this?
There's definitely an increase in a feeling of anxiety, or a feeling that you're not in control of your world anymore. I don't feel confident anymore. It's hard to describe. Sleep is a big part of that, I'm sure.
Sleep? Okay.
And lack of social support is a big part of it. But also, really basic things like diet and regular exercise and, a family of friends and people you can talk to aren't going to tell you what to do.
Or that you're crazy, or that it's nothing. Yeah.
Those are very important.
When you say that there's a feeling of anxiety, would there be other mental or psychological symptoms as well? Like, because in menopause too, we hear about, your memory isn't as good and it's kind of in a fog. Does any of that happen in perimenopause?
In fact, the mental fog is more common in perimenopause than it is in menopause. And I would guess that it's because of that swinging estrogen and the increased stress hormones like cortisol. We've known for a long time that cortisol prevents us laying down the memory. So we just don't remember as well the things that happen when we're stressed.
That's not permanent though, right?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming back to the question of why perimenopause gets ignored, and And why it is wrongly called estrogen deficiency, which it still is, because of a misunderstanding of what night sweats and hot flushes come from. Okay? So they were defined as estrogen deficiency 100 years ago. Well, we didn't discover estrogen until the 1930s, or we didn't make a chemical map of it. But you understand, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so the reason was that menopause was called estrogen deficiency. Okay.
Yeah.
Estrogen was discovered first, so most of the thought processes have been focused on estrogen, even though it's kind of ironic. The kind of estrogen that was discovered first was menopausal estrogen, which is not the major estrogen for women for our whole life cycle. Estradiol is. And progesterone was actually described before estradiol. But already the gynecologists were in love with estrogen. It explained everything. In fact, the saying goes, estrogen makes a girl, which is wrong on many fronts. Being a woman or a girl is a gender identity as well as a biochemical sexual thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my adaptation of that is, if estrogen's what makes a girl, then estrogen with progesterone is what makes a healthy woman.
So the sense I get is that those doctors, researchers early on were, I don't know if they were ignoring, but I guess not putting as much importance on progesterone as they were on estrogen. Is that right?
It's right today.
And it's still that way.
That's right.
So then tell me, what is the importance of progesterone?
Progesterone can be understood as important because it's a partner with estrogen. Estrogen's a powerful growth stimulator. Put it in a petri dish with any cell and it'll make that cell grow. Progesterone is necessary to slow growth. That's had enough. And it makes the cells more specific, more refined, more able to do what they were meant to do.
So you have to have both.
The two of them work together.
Yeah.
And actually, in a normally ovulatory cycle, progesterone is made in prodigious amounts compared to the amount of estrogen. Just as an example, estrogen increases from its low during flow, which is perfectly normal, about 200%. Progesterone is low the whole first half of the cycle until after an egg is released, and then it rises 1,400%. So the body makes a huge amount of this new hormone because it's so important.
Right. So just going back to this lack of awareness, and you say that it exists even among the medical profession. I mean, the concept of perimenopause, though, it's been around for a while now. Yeah. So if a woman was to go to see their doctor, and let's say she's 37, I'm just making this up, but let's say she's in her late 30s and she's suffering from a number of those symptoms that we've talked about, what's the likelihood that her GP is going to identify that as perimenopause?
The likelihood is extremely low if she doesn't have irregular cycles. She'll be told it's all in her head. She must be stressed. It must be her relationship with her partner. It must be her work, whatever, and given an antidepressant.
So if she has a regular cycle, but she has those symptoms, perimenopause is discounted.
It's not on the radar.
Wow. There must
unless
How many women do you think we're talking about this could affect?
Millions and millions.
Millions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we know what percentage of women are affected by perimenopause? They're troubled by it. They actually have symptoms and, it's.
We don't have any good data. I would say between 20 and 35% of women have some difficulty. Heavy flow, night sweats, sleep problems, depression. Yeah.
And let's say a doctor does think it's perimenopause, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what would the doctor recommend? Like what can you do for it?
So what should the doctor recommend?
Yeah.
What
should the doctor recommend? Yeah.
Should, because we now have randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial data that oral micronized progesterone, 300 milligrams, 3 little balls taken at bedtime, control the night sweats, markedly improve the sleep.
Oh.
And improve, and this is interesting, we ask a question, how much does perimenopause interfere with your daily diet, your activities? Mm-hmm. And we ask them to decide on a 0 to 10 scale. Okay. Those who were taking progesterone had a lower interference of perimenopause with their daily life than did those who were on placebo.
And what about side effects?
The most common side effect of progesterone is its beneficial effect on sleep.
So there have been no negative side effects reported?
No serious ones. And I do say to women, if you are starting progesterone and you're sleep deprived, you've just not been getting good sleep.
Yeah.
Then start it on a Friday night when you can sleep in Saturday morning or before a day off, whatever day that is. Because once your body gets into that rapid eye movement sleep, that deep dream sleep, it doesn't want to get out again. So let it have a chance to catch up. And then when you take progesterone at bedtime, you're not going to feel drowsy in the morning. The drowsy effect is already worn off.
Are there a significant number of women who are taking progesterone for perimenopause?
I don't know how many. I've certainly been talking about it in my book, published in 2005. I discussed it because I already knew as a clinician then and as a person that it was helpful.
Right. Okay. So let's say doctors diagnose perimenopause, right, with their patients. Then what's the reality? What are they most likely going to prescribe to their patients?
So they will likely ask about need for contraception, and they may well recommend the birth control pill, even though the birth control pill has been shown not to improve hot flushes and night sweats. It makes flow worse for at least the first 3 months, and it doesn't improve quality of life. That's from a randomized controlled trial.
And sorry, why are they prescribing the birth control pill? What's behind that?
It's hormones. They think they're estrogen deficient.
Oh.
And they think she still needs contraception, which she probably does if he's in a relationship.
Is there also the thinking that it's going to regulate the cycle and that's good for the woman?
Yes, but it doesn't because the feedback loops are broken. Nothing can regulate that cycle. It's on overdrive.
Do you know, I don't get it. I just don't get this huge disparity between what you say is the thinking of a lot of doctors, and they're focused on estrogen, whereas you're saying the evidence looks at progesterone and it says that is what the issue is, and women need more of that. How can there be such a big gap?
Well, for a start, it takes a pharmaceutical company to go through the hoops of Health Canada or the FDA or whatever to get an indication for a drug. Well, we did our trial with funding from the Canadian Institutes for Health Research. So that's not a drug company. It's not going to take that through these regulatory bodies. And so the tendency is to use the drug that the drug companies are supporting, even if the evidence doesn't show it works.
Can I ask, because you've been talking about this for a long time now, and I'm assuming you're talking to a lot of doctors about this. What reaction do you get from them?
It depends. It depends. Women are more likely to get it than doctors are. One other problem is that the guidelines continue to say about perimenopause that the typical menopausal hormone therapy, which is estrogen with a little bit of progestin or progesterone, is effective in perimenopause. And the evidence for that is simply not available. They base it on their clinical experience. And what happens in real life is that if someone is not feeling better, they're likely to go to a different doctor and never go back to the one who gave them that. So the doctor doesn't learn from their own patients.
So when the woman is getting both, right? That's what you're saying. They might be prescribed estrogen and a little bit of progesterone, right? Does that little bit of progesterone still make them feel better? So they think it is actually working, that is the right prescription.
If they get progesterone instead of progestin, it will usually help their sleep, even if it's in a lower dose. So there's some benefit from that, but there may well be risk from the high dose of estrogen. Because if estrogen if the feedback loops are broken, and normally estrogen rises to 2,000 and the mid-cycle peak is normally 500. The highest it ever would get was 500. And you add more estrogen on top of that, because it's not going to suppress your own hormones like it does when you're premenopausal.
So symptoms might get worse, but what about internally, like physiologically? What's the danger of that? Is there a danger?
For sure. If it's oral estrogen, which most of the time it is, there's a real risk of blood clots and also an increased risk of stroke.
Okay, now that makes me wonder. That's common knowledge, right? There's a risk of blood clot. Okay, so
yes, oral estrogen has clearly shown.
Yeah. So then isn't that very troubling? Because of what you say, then if the wrong prescription is being given, then that's unnecessarily increasing the risk in some women of blood clots. Is that right?
That's right. It's a concern.
Yeah.
It's a real concern. And, but even the most reasonable recent guidelines do not describe that progesterone is effective in perimenopause. We published in July of 2023.
You published?
We published that.
Yeah.
It's open access, scientific reports. I'm the first author. 189 Canadian women participated for 4 months.
And was this a peer-reviewed journal?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And has your work been replicated in other studies?
Not yet.
Is that what they're waiting for?
Maybe they may wait a long time because most of my studies haven't been replicated, not because people haven't tried, but because they're not interested. It's really quite weird.
Huh. Well, I cannot get over it. The other thing I was wondering is, Are there women who, let's say the doctor wants to give progesterone for these symptoms of perimenopause, but the woman is hesitant and she's like, well, I don't really know if I want to go on that drug. Is there anything natural, like some kind of natural therapy I can do? Do you hear that from women? Yeah. Is there anything they could do an alternative?
Well, oral micronized progesterone is identical to what the ovary would be making if it could. So in that sense, it's natural. It's a bioidentical hormone, and it's approved by, Health Canada, FDA, European Union,
There's nothing though that they can do that's not ingesting something or.
Oh, absolutely. There's stuff you can do. And I mean, really, really a lot of symptoms are related to a person's job, their relationship. It's extra hard for for a mother who's in perimenopause to have teenage daughters. That's particularly difficult for obvious reasons. And her approach to life. If she feels like she has to control things and things have to be perfect, she's going to have a worse time than if she feels like this must be a natural process. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to make the changes that I can. I'll get help when I need it. That the difference in attitude matters.
So has that also been looked into extensively? The whole socio, cultural, economic factors around perimenopause and menopause.
Yes, I think there are a number of good studies.
Okay.
And one of the things that's interesting and that most people and physicians don't know is that stress makes the night sweats and hot flushes worse. So, for example, in the big study, the study of women across the nation in the United States, they asked women if they had any difficulty paying for basics, food and shelter, things like that. Those who had trouble paying for basics had much worse hot flushes and night sweats.
Interesting. Yeah.
Those who had the best education, maybe a better job, something that gave them flexibility, were less symptomatic. So there's lots of things. And if you have a couple of friends that you can just, tell everything to, and they won't say, why didn't you do this? Or why don't you try this? They'll just listen. That's a huge benefit. So all of you premenopausal women who are listening, give yourself some good friends and be a good listener.
Do you know that is so true? So a number of friends of mine have said, even with menopausal symptoms, but also with this perimenopausal stage they were going through, that, they would look for medical help, or they looked at literature and they really couldn't find too much good information about it. And they actually got more benefit. You're right. Talking to their friends about it, and also social media, that they actually found people who had the same symptoms as they did talking about it online. And then they thought, oh, I'm not going crazy. There are other women who are going through the same thing.
Yes, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So there's a website called Women Living Better that's worth looking at.
Women Living Better.
Yeah. And Nina Koslov, who founded it, and a number of other people, I've worked with her for a long time, are also describing that phase of perimenopause, what I call it perimenopause, very early perimenopause, when women still have regular cycles. So they've been doing a lot of important research about that.
For women who are listening, who they're going, oh my goodness, I have those symptoms. I didn't realize it. I'm in perimenopause. What do you recommend that they do?
First of all, talk with friends and look at reasonable internet sites. What's surprising is that some of the most reputable, seemingly, medical sites may give the gospel according to gynecology, and you're not in perimenopause till you get irregular cycles. But like with the site Women Living Better, so start with that. And I encourage women to keep a careful track of what they're experiencing. So on the Center for Menstrual Cycle and Ovulation Research website is a tool called the Daily Perimenopause Diary. It's a tool that we used in our study, and it allows you to track flow, allows you to track cramps that are often increased, sleep, all the things that are important. And then when you go to talk to your doctor, you can say, here's my record of the last several cycles. So you can see I still have cycles, but look, I'm getting night sweats around flow, and I'm having these sleep problems that are lasting any old time, and I'm just having trouble coping. And then a woman who's offered estrogen or antidepressant should feel comfortable enough to say to her physician, how about we try cyclic progesterone, let's say the last 14 days of my period. How about we just try it for 3 months? I'll keep a record like I've been doing. I'll record what I'm taking, and then I'll bring it back and show you, and we'll see if it works for me or not.
I'd love to know whether most doctors would be okay with that. Do you think they would be? Would they look at the downside and go, oh, you know what? There's not really a big downside to this. So, okay, fine. It's going to make her happy. Let's go ahead and do it. Do you think,
I think many family doctors, I'm talking about family doctors now.
Yeah, right.
Would want to keep this patient that they've gotten to know. Right?
Yeah.
And I hope they would say, that's a good idea. Let's try that. Or show me the evidence that it might work. And then the woman herself can show a randomized controlled trial. And I know that here at the University of British Columbia, we've been training doctors to become a partner to work with their patient. Not the boss, but a consultant, being, someone who knows more, can see a bigger picture, but who respects what the individual woman says.
Right. Well, what have women said to you after you've, given a talk about perimenopause and you've covered all this? I'd love to know what women have said to you.
You saved my life. Often.
Yeah.
Really. Just to understand I'm not alone. And I do something that most professionals are not supposed to do, which is tell my own story. But I was in the process of learning. I had to learn from my own experience. And then I started learning from my patients' experiences. And because from day one, I've been doing things like the tracking of diaries, cycles, and perimenopause, I've learned a lot.
I think this is very empowering for women to hear this. And not even just that they're not alone, but also that there's something they can do and something that's been researched and studied, and it's not in their head. And there's there's a solution to this.
And the good news is perimenopause ends.
It is.
Those people who have a tough time in perimenopause feel so much better when they become menopausal. That's a promise.
Okay, we're going to end off on that. It was wonderful speaking with you, Jerilynn.
Good talking to you. Excellent questions.
Thanks so much. That's Dr. Jerilynn Prior. She is a professor emerita in the Department of Medicine at UBC. She's an endocrinologist. She founded the Center for Menstrual Cycle and Ovulation Research, and she's also the author of the award-winning book, Estrogen's Storm Season, Stories of Perimenopause. Now, if you'd like to know more about Dr. Prior's work, her research, you can check out our show notes. I highly recommend you go there for more info. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our interview. And if you did, we would also love your support. We are a charity and we rely on your donations. So please head over to cramideas.com and you can follow us on social. Our handle is @CramIdeas. Thanks again. See you back here next time.